Last time on my walk of the A4, I managed to get back to my home in Reading, but now officially well over halfway to the end of the road in London, I began the third to last leg of the walk towards Maidenhead. Hello, my name's John, filmmaker and slightly experienced walker, and last year I decided to go on a bit of a journey. I wanted to walk the length of the historic road linking the west coast of England to London. There'll be highs.
Sure, I won't mind me saying that.
And lows.
Oh, the long and boring road is back.
And lots of walking. Please enjoy this episode of Walking the Length of the A4. To be honest, if I had a slightly more pessimistic view of how the series was turning out by this point, I'd have probably stopped the walk at my home in Reading, but clearly something was going well enough that I decided to push on into pastures new.
We're now walking where I've never walked before, if that makes sense. Like, I've not walked this part of the A4 ever. I mean, I've driven it, well, actually, I have driven it actually. I probably never said that I can actually drive. I passed my test 4 years ago. I mean, on that note, you're probably wondering why I didn't drive the A4. Well, there's the fun in that. Walking it is way better.
Just to remind you, the plan for the day would be starting off in central Reading and walking past Charville, Twyford and Harehatch before ending up in Maidenhead, and I'd officially end that day's walk at Tatleshire Station. Why not Maidenhead Station? I'll explain later. Currently just beyond Charville, I had a few words to say about our old friend, the footpaths.
Oh, you may notice that I wasn't on a footpath there. I mean, it was like what happened back in Woodley, where the road was right next to the A4. But I was like, you know what? I'll just have this one time. I've seen what it's like walking alongside a dual carriageway, because I didn't do it at Keynsham, didn't do it at Bath East, and didn't do it near Field. And it's safe to say that I didn't really like it. So yeah, it would have been too busy to do it then. We've done it now. So, okay. Also, we're in the last section of countryside, really, in the entire A4. Because after this, it gets to Maidenhead, and then there's not much at all, because you get straight into Slough and then London. So, enjoy it while it lasts. Progress report. I'm guessing we're about 3 miles in. About that. Got about 12 more to go. Currently 1:30. It's a little later than I wanted it to be, but hey ho, we're not in a rush. Hopefully get to Taplow for around 6. Well, maybe 7. You know, I've really taken the footpaths for granted since I entered Reading. They've been really good. Now it's got to a little bit worse section of it. Now we've gone past Twyford.
Also, this whole section of the A4 clearly wasn't my favourite.
Oh, the long and boring road is back. Somehow, it didn't even look this empty, just like when I was leaving Newbury. It feels like I'm back in the gap again. Like how little's on the road.
And that resulted in boredom feeling like exhaustion.
By this point I'm kind of regretting doing a walk today a little. I've got a fair amount of sleep, but I'm still tired. And I'm out of practice. And I worked yesterday and I'm working tomorrow. I'm a little tired. Feet are hurting a little.
Watching back this clip, I realised that there are actually quite a lot of downsides to walking the second half of the A4 in non-consecutive days. Just in case you've forgotten, the legs from Avonmouth to Hungerford were achieved all in 5 days while staying in hotels along the way. Despite nearly crashing in the final leg, I could devote all my thoughts and energy to walking further and filming it in those days. However, the strategy for the second half of the walk, doing the legs when I had time and when the weather was good, which not a lot of days were like that, meant that I always had my full-time job in the back of my mind, and I was always slightly out of practice walking long distances. If I did this walk again, I probably should have booked 2 whole weeks off work and did the whole walk in that time while taking extended 2-day rests at certain towns. But that's all hindsight. For now though, I was stuck with my strategy of walking when I had the time and getting a train back to Reading when I finished for the day, so for better or worse, I had to push on.
Even if I am struggling a little bit, at least we're crossing through boroughs at a rate we've never done before. This is our 3rd borough of the day. Now we're in Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead, and it won't be the last time today. Hopefully we cross another one of those lines. Far cry from the days that I was spending like 2.5 days in Wiltshire and then another 2.5 whatever in West Berkshire, so yeah, you know, crossing them now. Oh, it's been a while since I've seen one of those. So from that, 9 miles from Reading, 78 miles I think it said to Bath. And that's not even the start of it, so I think, I know we're approaching the 100-mile mark, so we're probably 95 miles from Avonmouth. And here's the big one, 30 miles Hyde Park Corner. It's not the end of the A4, but it's down close to it. So 30 miles, and we're done. 13 miles. That must encourage me, come on, that must encourage me.
That didn't encourage me.
It's getting a little embarrassing now, I think. This is not going to plan.
I really hate to have this much negativity in this instalment, but looking back, this was my least favourite leg of the walk. I did capture this absolute gem of me losing my marbles again though.
I'm walking along the A4 and I'm weirdly humming along to the Coronation Street theme. What is my bloody life coming to, man? It wasn't even called Coronation Street, it's called Coronation Road. Honestly, this is never going to be seen by anyone. I'm not going to put that in a bloody video. Wait, we're already at Maidenhead? When did this happen? Why am I in Maidenhead? You haven't seen nothing bloody town-like. I thought the edge of Maidenhead was the A404. At least I'm in Maidenhead, apparently.
Now firmly in Maidenhead, I saw the first sign to the next town, and even my camera was afraid of it.
That's the first sign I've seen from Slough, but that wasn't the only attempt I got at shooting that sign. The first attempt, the camera, I think the lens became sort of detached, and it looked like this. So my interpretation of that is that the camera knew the sign was of Slough and stopped working.
If you want to see more on Slough, it'll be featured in the next episode.
I'm currently passing underneath Sainsbury's, which is so big I can't really get a shot of it. But it's a huge Sainsbury's.
It was a huge Sainsbury's. Also, fun fact, according to my revised measurements of the route, this point marked 100 miles from the start of the A4. I know 100 miles doesn't sound like a long distance to a lot of people, but you're probably thinking of a faster means of transport than one's own legs covering that distance. So, from that perspective of walking, 100 miles does sound a bit more impressive, doesn't it? Anyway, now on the edge of Maidenhead, I approached another huge landmark of the A4, the River Thames. Believe it or not, this is the one and only time the A4 crosses the Thames. Well, sort of.
Hey, technically, because the Kennet was a tributary of the Thames, we've already crossed the Thames a lot of times, but that's the only time we're going to cross the Thames. Also, we're in Buckinghamshire now. We won't be here for long, but we'll be here for at least the end of this walk.
Nearing the end of this leg of the journey and also this episode, I have a small story to tell.
Admittedly, today wasn't meant to end with me just getting a train back from Taplow. I was actually meant to meet up with another mate of mine called Ben. The trouble is, he's apparently surfing. It's that kind of person. We met when it was sixth form, or Reading College, which I passed earlier today actually. And he was really interested in like camping and that, which I wasn't, and still a little bit, but I've got a little better with camping. I would be open to do it now. He went on all his wild adventures and went along. But when I told him about my plan to do this walk a few months ago, back in April, he seemed really like interested, and when I messaged him like asking, hey, do you want to meet up? And he's like, no, sorry, but well done on getting this far. I got even further now, but he lives around Taplow area, and I would have met up with him, but sadly no. Oh well, maybe another time you'll see him. See, he's a bloody blast to be on camera. If you think I've lost my marbles, you just wait until you see him. I'm sure he won't mind me saying that. Might not be the most ideal turning off point, but it's the most risk-free, as the other route might just go under the station or railway bridge and not go any further, so this seems like the best turning to go on.
Arriving at a reasonable time to get the train back to Reading. A little bit annoyed by the day of walking, but hopeful for the remaining 2 legs. I hopped on the train back home, and this is where I leave you for this episode. We're nearing the end now. Tune in next time to see me enter Greater London.